Welcome to the September meeting of the Commission on Aging. I am pleased to introduce two new members of our commission, Sue Oakley and Susan Costin. Thank you so much for joining us. What we'll do today, and what we try to do every September, is to try to go around the table so everybody can see the faces of the new academic year. I'm Joe Pankowski, Chair of the Commission on Aging. I'm also partner in Wassey, Rosenquist, and Kuriansky doing wills, trusts, and probate work. Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Metzger. In addition to this commission, I'm also on the At Home in Darien board.
Chris Jones, the I guess relatively new executive director, 2+ months at Home in Darien.
Peter Etter, serving the second term on this commission. I'm also on the Blight Review Board of the town.
Ray Slavin, I've been on the commission since 2010 or 9 or something. Yeah, okay. I'm on a number of other committees too as well. Yeah. And Sue is an old neighbor of mine.
Indeed. Oh, nice. I'm Mary McCarthy. I've been on the commission for about 10 or 12 years, and I also work part-time at the Darien YMCA.
I'm Susan Costin, been in town for 30+ years. Was active in a lot of Darien things for a while, and now that I'm retired, I'm jumping back in. So this is the first thing I've done in a while.
Welcome.
Sue Okie, O-K-I-E. I grew up in town and have raised my family here. I'm on the board of At Home in Darien as well. I've been on the board for the League of Women Voters for years and the Community Fund Board. So I've done a lot. I'm a realtor and would love to be more involved.
Welcome.
I'm Marsha Cleary. I've been on here for about 6 months, so I'm still a newbie, enjoying this. I still have a part-time job at a family holding company in town, and I'm enjoying it. I hope I can participate more actively. But anyway.
Beth Paris, I'm the Director of Darien Senior Programs at Mather Center.
I'm Jerry Genovese. I've been in town for over 50 years. I'm very involved at the Senior Center with Beth as a volunteer, and I'm also a volunteer at Ableist in town. And I work with St. John's with our seniors, and I love being involved with this generation.
Steve O'Vanny, I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I was invited to your meeting today.
That's right. Thank you, Steve. Steve is joining us from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And would you like to say as well?
My name is Sharon Saltis. I work with Telesco Secretarial Services, and I take the minutes.
Awesome, and we're very blessed to have her, but because before she showed up, we'd have to figure out who was going to do the minutes, and that was not fun. So as I look at everybody, they go, not me. So as a result, my godsend, thank you so much for being here, Sharon. And so today's biggest topic will be Steve talking to us about a potential plan for west of the Darien train station. But before we get there, we have to review our June and July minutes and also hear from Beth. Allie could not be with us today. She has commitments, but Allie Ramstedt, the Director of Human Services, she'll be with us in October. So I will first, anybody have any questions or changes relating to the June minutes?
About 10.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the June minutes? Okay, I'm hearing a motion, I'm seeing hands, I'll take it. All in favor? Aye, thank you. July minutes, anybody have any questions, changes, modifications to the July minutes of the Commission on Aging? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the July minutes? Thank you. Second, and then all in favor? Aye, perfect. That's the way I like to rock and roll. Great. So next on our topic is Beth with our Mather Center report.
I did do a report for August, even though we didn't have a meeting, just so that you can know that we were still working in August. Just to let you know that the ARPA funds that came to the Senior Center, the computer room was completed in August by our IT department. So we have 12 brand new computers. We have 8 iPads, so we may have a synergy with the Darien Library at this point. I may be talking to Marsha about getting her involved too. That we have appointments once a month for questions, for individual questions, and then we have classes once a month. But we are looking for more folks that even somebody who could do a weekly class, because there's a tremendous amount of interest, and we would even stipend that person. So just put that out in the atmosphere. So we're looking to make good use of those funds that were given to us, and also very excited to have the computer room up and running, really up to date at this particular point. Whatever that means in the computer world, because I know that doesn't last long. September is National Senior Center Month. There's signs all over the center. The theme was strengthening community connections, which we have done greatly over the COVID crisis, and moving forward even more. I just want to let you know that there will be flu clinics in October. If you don't have computer access, you can call the center. We'll make the appointment for you and pass it on to our public health department. It's another way there's synergy of connection, just to just lean into that a little bit. And we're happy to be able to do it and host it. We did the primary elections in the Mather Center as well. So there's a lot of use of the Mather Center that are synergistic, and some that are community service as well that we are participating in too. Just to let you know, we are up to full measure of what we did prior to COVID in terms of programming. Lots and lots of new classes, entertainers, I don't know where they came from, but there are a lot of people that decided, I think, to take retirement, and we have incredible musicians coming in. We're ending our Senior Center month with Oktoberfest, September 30th. I still have openings. We have a fabulous entertainer coming in, and Judy's making a German fare lunch that, if you want to salivate, I'll read what it is, but it's very, very good, including a big pretzel with mustard and a Black Forest chocolate cake, which is really my favorite because I'm a real dessert person. But just to really look, one of the most exciting things that we brought on board is called Beyonder. It's actually virtual live tours that you come into the computer. Oh, I forgot, we got 2 big screen TVs also from ARPA. So one of the things that we made use of is if you came in early in September, we went to Tel Aviv, Israel live with an actual tour guide, and we could even ask questions. So we could say, go to the left, we missed that, go to the right, what was that, we missed that. We're going to Milan in October. I'm Italian, so I'm thrilled about that. But it's really a lot of fun, and I couldn't believe how good it really is. I mean, the gentleman actually stops and says, did you get what you needed? And you can ask questions. So that's a new endeavor that we're doing, and being not such a tech-savvy person, it fascinates me. So just want to let people know that these are other programs that we're bringing in too, and this is one of the reasons why we want to upgrade our tech support too. That's really it for me. Please look at the newsletter. Please mark it. October's coming out by tomorrow, the October newsletter. Oh, I just want to add, we are very, very excited in October, another synergy, that we're going to have an emergency preparedness program with Dave Knopf, who's our Director of Public Health, Bobby Bush, our Fire Marshal, Allie Ramsteck, our Human Services Coordinator, a representative from the Police Department, because Don Anderson has a big commitment that day. So it's going to be a wonderful presentation that shows you really how coordinated. Mark McEwen, also our Chief Operations of Emergency Management, will be there too. So they're going to do a little presentation, and then you can ask questions, and you'll see in all different types of emergencies how prepared our community is, and all the endeavors that they're making toward the residents. So it's going to be very exciting. We're having it at 11 o'clock on Wednesday the 18th, and it's followed by lunch, and they're all staying for lunch. So you can sign up for lunch too. It'll be a special lunch day as well. So that's it from me. I do have Allie's report if you would like.
Well, let's first ask, anybody have any questions for Beth before we move on to Allie's report?
Beth, will you be talking about the latest update on CWSCO?
I would ask if they want me to wait on that, the Senior Center Working Group.
Let's do that as part of old business or
okay.
new business, whichever you prefer,
Okay.
because I want to make sure that we get to Steve.
Right, okay, and I'm on it. I do have that there too.
Perfect.
I failed to mention, I am on the Senior Center Working Group for the state of Connecticut for the task force about senior centers and about the person that we're going to be hiring as a liaison as well. It's another hat, another few hats actually. From Allie, this is her report. I'm just going to read the highlighted portions of it because I don't want to get anything. I want everything to be accurate. Renters rebate, the last day to apply for the 2022 Connecticut Renters Rebate Program is September 30th. So you have just a little more time to do that. You would call Human Services at 203-656-7328 and ask for Cynthia Hall. She's been coordinating that program. Also, Low Income Energy Assistance Program started on September 19th, and they began to accept applications for the 22-23 Energy Assistance Program. This is for residents who heat with oil. Clients that heat with electric, gas, or propane, their time starts October 17th, 2022. The program helps supplement energy costs for financially struggling residents, and income limits apply. The 2022-2023 income limits for a single person household is $39,761. For a family of four, $76,465. There will be no asset limits again this year, which is wonderful, wonderful news, especially for seniors. Again, call 203-656-7328. I think both Ally and Cynthia are taking those applications, so either one you can ask for. And following the multiple tragic deaths in spring, the town has created a mental health task force, which includes town employees and officials, Darien School District administrators, community organizations, religious leaders, and mental health professionals. This group has two subcommittees, behavioral health programming and mental health needs assessment. They're currently in the process of developing programming and resources for the community, as well as coordinating with any outside agencies to develop a town-wide mental health needs assessment. Part of where they are today is it's a grief counseling certification that both Cynthia and Ally are getting. That's why they're not here today. The staff of Darien Human Services also maintains an emergency call list with the names of vulnerable seniors and individuals with disabilities to contact prior to a storm. If we know there's another kind of emergency prior to that emergency as well. They are requesting that individuals who are feeling vulnerable, that have medical conditions or just don't have family even to connect with, make their call for this list, so they will be notified and kept abreast and in contact. During COVID, we shared that list as well, so there were so many people that we needed to reach out to. Another thing, how we strengthen our community connections. So that's the Human Services report.
Fantastic. Thanks, Beth. We won't ask,
there's a great article in the Stanford Advocate today on fuel, and in particular, they're talking about gasoline, but they also mention the fuel assistance program, and it's a hot issue right now, basically, sure. And especially for gasoline. If the price of gasoline is over $3.40, they're probably going to act after the next election. But it's everybody ought to read it. It's a very good summarization of what's going on.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're out there Googling, we are meeting on Wednesday, September 21st. So you could Google Stanford Advocate, Wednesday, September 21st, fuel oil, and find that link. Great. Anything else for, I should say, Beth, thank you for reporting for Ally.
Oh, you're very
So we won't ask you any questions about Human Services. We'll wait till October for Ally when she comes back. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Steve back to us. Steve was here in the spring. Thanks to Peter Etter, who gave us a push on walkability. We've been focusing on walkability for this calendar year, looking at questions of how can we make Darien more walkable? What ways do we think about this? So Steve was with us, I believe, in May, and I think that Jerry's son, David, was with us in June. We did not have anybody with us in July, but Steve contacted me about this program he's about to discuss, and I'll let him go into it. I thought it was pretty awesome myself, so I said, would you come back to the September meeting and talk to us about this wonderful plan for the west of Darien, west of train station in Darien, the Post Road area, from the train station going back to the Darien Sports Shop, across the street to the Bank of America building, all the way down to what I still consider the Boston Market building. I know it's now a CVS, but I love that Boston building, and I miss it very much. So in any event, that's the part we're talking about here, is that part of Darien, and what can we do to make it more walkable. And as we all know, for seniors, that's a critical issue, because we seniors don't move as fast as other people. And there are plenty of people out there texting on their cell phones, doing other garbage while they're driving. And so we need to do better things for our seniors and everybody else in terms of walkability. So without further ado, Steve, the table is yours.
Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. Yes, I'm Steve Rebate. I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I was here to visit you guys in the spring with a great conversation. Peter Elders reminded me a couple of different things about walkability in town, and it is something that we've been working in Darien for the past, I'm going to say, since 2016, when we did the Town Plan of Conservation and Development. Interesting enough, over the summer, Frosty the Snowman contacted me and said, hey, I want to do a walkability tour, I want to do a walking tour in your town. And I said, okay, let's see if we can figure it out for December. And he wants to have a parade in town and walk us around. So I took a document that I did last year, showed it to Joe. I talked to Frosty. He said, okay, what can we do? So if you look at the document in front of you, I only brought about 8 of them, and there's more people than expected today. So what we put together is a plan for walkability and parking for downtown Darien. Like I said, this is something we've been working on since 2016, and it was really started in July of 1951. Wow. So if you look at page 2 of the document, I need to thank my good friend David Genovese for telling me about this. This is his brother right here. He, in his inevitable research, found out that off-street parking for the town of Darien was planned in 1951. That is about 60, 70 years ago, and we're still working on it. So if you look at the document we put together, it is something that has been in the planning works for a long time. And thanks to what we call the Corbin District in town, which is going on right now, on the second fold-out page of your document from July of 1951, they devised a street called New Street, which is on the north side of the Post Road. That starts at effectively across the street from the Darien Sports Shop, next to the Bank of America building, is going to go back around the buildings on the Post Road and connect with Corbin Drive. Mr. Genovese, in his plan for downtown Darien, is putting that street in. I think there's a room on the street, it might be called Penny Lane. I don't know if that's true or not, but Mrs. Glassmeyer was the one that helped devise this plan. So I do need to thank Jimmy's son that helped us devise this plan. What we're working on now is the other side of Boston Post Road, which is the south side. Because if you look at the plan that's in front of you, there's a yellow highlighted marker. It starts at pretty much the Boston Post Road on the west side, which is on the left side of your page. It goes across the street from what today is, you see, it's called up across the donut shop, goes across the street to what used to be called Brooks Brothers, down Squab Lane, which is where that white building is, all the way down Grove Street, past Grove Street Plaza, and it ends at the Darien Sports Shop.
Oh, yeah.
In the middle of that is the Darien Theater Playhouse. So what the plan is since in 2016 we came up with the Town Plan of Conservation and Development, and it shows the potential redevelopment of downtown Darien. And this is another document that came out of that plan, which is another fold-out page that goes to the street that's highlighted on the left side says Grove Street to be extended to Leroy Avenue, allow continuous travel parallel to the Post Road. Yep, it goes this way. Well, it goes that way. Yeah, I think you got it.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah, right.
And then Ray Slater, come on. Tough guy. Yeah, you got it. I've known that man for 20 years. I'm only 19 years old. And then if you look at the other end where it says entry to the train station, redesign, improvement, circulation, secondary connection to Leroy to help ease congestion. The Dulcetti family owns a building called 2 Squab Lane. As part of the redevelopment of 2 Squab Lane, they are required and wanted to connect their building and the end of Grove Street with the Darien train station via a staircase. As part of their latest and greatest plan, which they're still working on, and they've been working on this project for about, I'm going to say 15 years. A number of things happened, but they've had some changes. They're going to connect the building that they also own, which is the old Brooks Brothers store, which is now their bridal shop, to 2 Squab Lane via a new sidewalk, and then that would connect over to Grove Street Plaza, which is where the fondue place is, which is called Melting Pot. So what we're really talking about, what Frosty wants to do is start kind of sort of at Corbin Drive, where today Helen Ansett is, walk down the Post Road all the way to Upper Crust, and where the, what's the name of that church, Joe, I always ask you?
Which one?
The one on Post Road that's next to DCA?
The Baptist.
Church?
Yeah, the Baptist
Calvary
Church.
Baptist.
And then cross the street, and then go down Squab Lane and end at the Darien Sport Shop. So if you ever walk that section, we're missing sidewalks today. There's only a few pieces that are missing. What we're trying to do, and it's been in the plan that works for years and years and years, is public-private partnerships with people that own that dirt. The town of Darien does not own a lot of that land. But the way it works in our town, and Mr. Genovese, the developer, Rocky, has done this in the past, where the town pays part of the money and the developer pays part of the money to put in these new sidewalks. So that's the town plan that we've been talking about for years. And just some of the other things that if you look inside this document here, it's to enhance downtown street systems. It could be public and private, which says on page 72. If you look on page 73, it shows the 2 different streets in blue, which are secondary streets. I'm in the commercial real estate business, and I've been in the commercial real estate business for about 30 years, and I'm only 32 years old. But what happens is, Darien, and we talked about this in our last meeting, is a little bit like the town of Fairfield and some of the other towns that are along the Post Road. We're not like New Canaan, and we're not like Greenwich, and we're also not like Westport. Our main street is the Post Road. Greenwich's main street is perpendicular with the Post Road, not parallel. The town of Harrison, which I worked on there, and they brought me in a project similar to this, has got the same issues. They want to create theirs. Downtown New Canaan is different, and downtown Westport's main street is perpendicular and parallel. So what we're trying to do, and have been trying to do since 1951, is to create these 2 side streets in Darien, one which is going to be New Street or Penny Lane, and the other one which is really Corbin Drive. So that's what the plan in page 73 shows you. So at the end of the day, what we're looking at, if you go further in the document, is this on page 75, it shows the sidewalks that Baywater Properties put in front of Gopher Ice Cream and 1020. Those sidewalks are really, really wide. Okay, on the other side of the street, they're not as wide. When Corbin District gets built, the new sidewalks on the other side of the street are going to be that wide. That's kind of sort of what we want. So you could have, a person with a baby carriage and a person walking a dog, or a person with a cane, or a person in a wheelchair walking down the street, and everybody can join at the same time. It helps everything. It helps traffic circulation, it helps commerce, and it helps the people that are out just for exercise to walk around downtown Darien. The next page in here just shows another document that came from the owners of the 2 Squab Lane, which is the Dulcetti family. It shows where Brooks Brothers is, the yellow path. It's going to connect to the melting pot from Brooks Brothers. That's the sidewalks there. You can see a little staircase that's going to go over to the train station. On the other end, the other thing, well, I'm going to skip one page for a second. But on the other end, you have another document which shows the Darien Sport Shop and the Darien Playhouse. If you have been back there in front of one of the buildings at the end of Squab Lane, there's a brand new raised, that one. There's a brand new raised sidewalk that is made out of brick. When the when the Vaccaro family purchased the Darien Theater, they redid the circulation behind the Darien Theater, which is now in the back there. There's a store called Laurent Lighting. There's a store called Les Kennedy's Barber, now it's Rudy's Barber. And there's also the taqueria that opened up 2 weeks ago. They created another secondary rear retail component. As part of that project, they put in a connecting speed bump / sidewalk that goes across Grove Street. That was upon the Planning and Zoning Commission's request. They put that in on their property to slow down traffic, put a safe crossing in there. What we want to do now is continue that sidewalk that would go from the old front door to the movie theater all the way directly to the front door of the Darien Sport Shop. I've already spoken to a gentleman named Mr. Kazi, Fred Kazi, who's a former chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He works with the Zangrillo family to help us design that. That parking lot is privately owned, and there's a 3 ownership shared parking agreement. So it's a complicated project to do, to get those 3 people in that sandbox to play together and try to help us develop this. But that's where the public partnership comes in. If you go to the Darien Sports Shop right now, they put a plan in front of the Architecture Review Board about a month and a half ago during the summer to redo the back of their building, which is really the front of their building, just some facade walk and some landscaping work. The idea is to connect the back door, front door of the Darien Sports Shop directly across the street to the Corbin District. As part of the Corbin District Development Plan, Mr. Genevieve's got a crosswalk that's going to cross the Post Road that's going to go directly, basically from the Darien Sports Shop or Webster Bank to the new building that's going to be across the street. It's one of the only few crosswalks that's going to be on the Post Road that is not on a corner. It's a mid-block crosswalk. It took him a couple of years to do it. He's a very patient man, smart man, and he got the approval to do that. So when you do see that, it'll come. So if what we're trying to do now comes to fruition, and we've been trying to do since 1951, you will have a complete circle walking around downtown Darien with the Post Road in the dead center of it. A couple other pictures that are inside here show crosswalks now. The one that's on the next page, crosswalk photography, that is the new crosswalk that was put from the old, I used to call it Centros. Centros goes across the street mid-block into 330, 300 Post Road, which is an office building on the other end of town. And the only thing I want to add, the other 2 pages really don't, the only thing I want to add is, as part of this project, we found out that there is an easement that the town of Darien has rights to, which is between the Episcopal Methodist Church on the Post Road, which is really the Darien Thrift Shop, or the DCA Thrift Shop, and the bank branch, which is known as Fairfield County Bank or First County Bank. I think it's
First County.
Yeah, it's First County. There's an easement that the town has rights to that's been in place for a while. That easement right now, the idea is to be able to get people to go into the parking section. If you ever go to downtown Westport or downtown Greenwich, there are easements that are between buildings and under buildings that give you just driveways to walk from the main street, which is ours, is Post Road, back to the parking lot on a private sidewalk that nobody really owns. It's actually owned by the town. That's what this document is. I've spoken to the Public Works Director, which is a gentleman named Ed Gentile. I spoke to Jeremy Ginsburg, who is the Planning and Zoning Land Use Director, and also Town Council, to be able to get the rights to put a sidewalk on here, which is going to be a through-block protected street to get people to be able to walk to the back of Darien, the parking lot on that street. So what my goal today is to introduce you to this plan that's been in the works for a long time and try to get your support behind it to help us get this thing through the channels that it needs to get to. There's some state channels, there's some local channels, the private channels, which are the developers. I'm going to kind of handle that myself. But we also need some funding for it for the town. I personally, the Planning and Zoning Commission does not have any budgets. Some of the sidewalk work is in the ARPA funds, which Beth got contact to. This is going to take a long time to do. Ed Gentile in planning in the Public Works Department does have a big budget for roads and sidewalks every single year, so we're going to try to see if we can do that. So thanks to Mr. Elders. Last time that we met here, we talked about this a lot, trying to make Darien walkable. This plan has been introduced to Monica McNally. She knows about it. It came up at our last OPC meeting, which is Operations and Planning Commission meeting. John Zagrodsky also knows about it when he was on the Board of Finance and now as Board of Selectmen. And now you and other people I want to introduce you to, and obviously the Planning Zone Commission. So that's what we're working on, and hopefully we can get other people's support. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Questions for Steve? Mary.
Steve, how will the crosswalk that's going from Darien Sports to the other side of Post Road be regulated? There's no light there, right?
There's no light there. The same exact one that is on the other end of town does not have a light either. In the state law, and I don't think we're going to be able to do it, we might. If you go around town, you see a lot of those signs that are middle of the road now that say, crosswalk. By nature of those signs, if there is somebody in the crosswalk, by law, you're supposed to stop. In Darien, I think my street, my brother-in-law is a police officer in town, and my father-in-law is very active. We were one of the first streets in Darien to get one of those because we're at the end of Middlesex Club. I think the plan is to get some of those in the Post Road. I don't know if Mr. Genovese at Baywater Properties got that as part of his approval, but we will see. We've been working on traffic calming for a long time.
Yeah. It's a state issue.
It is. It's an issue that should be pursued, and the way you start it is, of course, with your police department. But it's very complicated because it's a state road. But it should be done, and it can be done, and it's going to take a lot of work with regulations at the state level. But again, it's something that, again, the town needs to pursue.
Right.
Because in my mind, this is a Band-Aid. I mean, it's terrific, but it's still a Band-Aid because there's no traffic light, and you still have to deal with drivers that are not concerned with pedestrians.
Right.
I have a related question. I parked in the back last week, and I had to go to Verizon.
Okay.
And so we came down the alleyway where the movie theater was.
Yep.
And that was almost completely inaccessible by Senna's outdoor dining space, which even has stanchions. And again, if you're handicapped or in a wheelchair, it could be a real problem. Who is policing the improvements that have been made?
You're talking about the tables and chairs are out there and the awning?
Right, the tables and chairs, and they even have an iron railing around the tables and chairs.
Right, that does come in front of the Planning and Zoning Department. As per COVID, when the governor did his executive order for outdoor dining, most of those outdoor dining areas got larger. That is one of the spaces. So when that plan does come in to the Planning and Zoning Office, it does get reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Office. That again is, they own both sides of the property, right? So they own both buildings. So that's where it's their driveway. We don't have any access rights to that unless there's something here that says right of way. So it did get put in front of P&Z department. What we did at the time was administratively, we didn't want to get involved in every single restaurant that put in tables and chairs outside. So the P&Z department got the initial sign off on it, made ministerial approvals. I can check into it.
Yeah, it looks like it's a heavily trafficked area.
Yeah, no, I've been there before, and there's people that go from the coffee shop, which is Nero, to the workout place, and I forget the name of it because there's a ton of them in town, but they walk by there, and then, it should be clear, it should not be blocked.
So which bodies or groups need to approve this to make it work? I mean, you've got state, and then what town, I don't know, commissions or boards? Who are you looking to approve this?
It's at this point in time, it's trying to get everybody on board. Eventually, it all comes down to money. Okay, so it always comes down to money. It's the sidewalk and the speed bump that I told you about that the Vaccaro family put in cost about, I think it was like $800 a linear foot to put it in. It's raised, it's got granite on either side, it's got brick in the middle. It's really, really expensive. That developer did it themselves. When Baywater Properties does their corporate drive stuff, their sidewalks are gonna be really expensive. A typical sidewalk that the town of Darien builds costs about $65 a linear foot. So there's a big difference there. So you have to figure out how long the sidewalks are gonna be, and also the design on it. And some of the designs that I showed in here, which is page 75, which is in front of 1020, and then there's another one that's in here that is called stamped asphalt. Is that in here? Okay. I didn't make it. There's another one that's stamped asphalt, which is a lot less. So that's the big thing. Relative to P&Z approval, this, if it comes to P&Z at a resolution or at a meeting, it's gonna get approved in 2 minutes. Public Works gets involved, because at the end of the day, they're probably gonna build some of these things. And then, you know, if you're gonna cross the post road from one side to the other, David Genovese and Baywater Properties did it on his end of town. The picture that I showed you, which is here as a crosswalk, was done. That was actually initiated by the state, and the police department, Captain Anderson signed off on it about, I think it's about 4 years ago. And this was only put in about 1.5 years ago. So all this stuff takes a lot of time. I am a patient person, but not that patient. I don't have 40 years to figure this out. I don't have 4 years to figure it out.
I'm just wondering who needs to be lobbied to push this through?
The selectmen's one of them.
The selectmen?
The selectmen's one of them. The Board of Finance is one of them.
Board of Finance, especially.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that we want to do in town, and this senior center and the Commission on Aging is by nature, I think you call yourself a lobbying group, right? Correct.
So when is it likely to come before them? Is it, or has it already been presented to them?
Frosty came to me this summer. He wanted it done by December of this year. If we can get it done by December of next year.
But are you presenting to the Board of Finance at some point coming soon, or to the Board of Selectmen?
I will present to the Board of Selectmen. Like I said, I've already spoken to the first selectman and other people on the board, but I will present to them and say this is what we want to do. But the other piece of the puzzle is that the two major components in this are privately owned, right? And if when 2 Squab Lane goes under construction, we can make them and ask them to do part of these site improvements. When Baywater Properties did all their work, we asked them and they did it to widen sidewalks and make sidewalks. But it's very hard to go up to someone that hasn't done anything to their property, is finished, and make them do it. The Vacaros, when their building was under construction, we asked them to do it and they did it.
So it's Dan Dulcetti who needs to be
Dan Dulcetti has been involved. I've met with him.
Is he on board?
He loves the idea. He loves the idea.
Who doesn't like the idea?
I'm sorry?
Who privately doesn't like the idea?
I don't think any privately doesn't like the idea. You know, if you have a sidewalk that goes from 2 Squab Lane directly to the front door of the sports shop, I can't understand why would they would not like the idea.
Yeah. So
It
town,
really
it's the finance.
It really requires a champion in the selectman's office. It truly does. Because again, we're just touching on some of the Parks and Rec should be a part of it, because again, walkability and how you move children around and what your Parks and Rec activity is going to be. So it really requires somebody with powerful oversight. It's been successful in towns like Greenwich, in Georgetown, but again, it requires a champion. And at the moment, we don't have a champion. We have wonderful people that are doing development work, real estate work, that are putting pieces together, but we need somebody to tie it together.
Greenwich is a great example. If you go to downtown Greenwich today, they have these sidewalks all over Greenwich Avenue. Up and down, it's a different animal, and I don't know how they paid for it, but they have them all over Greenwich Avenue, from the top all the way to the bottom.
Should try and get Monica to be a champion.
Monica has her plate very full.
Is she already on board, or other selectmen need to be
I think the more people you get on board, the better off you are, because when they do budget season, which comes up next.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as a
Yeah, exactly.
budget season for 2023-24 now.
It's
We're
now.
starting our workshops, so
Yeah.
this is a perfect time, actually.
But one of the issues right now, to me, that there's approval and there's funding. And basically, it sounds like the approval is there. But we just, the town of Darien has cut back on paving because of budgetary.
No, that's actually because of the price of oil spiked.
Well, it's still budget, right? They weren't willing to spend at the price it's gonna be. Who knows what the price of oil is gonna be during this whole period? So the finance committee really has to be on board.
So these solid joe for everybody here, not only the difference, but the same are concrete. You know, it's the same thing, but the public works director, which is in Gentile, he made the executive decision that when he got the bids back for the asphalt roads, the prices were way out of line, and they can just delay it and get double the same thing next year with the same amount of money.
Yeah, well,
It is budgetary, yeah.
that's a roll of the dice right now because, I mean,
When you would mention the thing about gas this morning, I remember when it was $6 a gallon. Now it's down to $3.38. No, but you're 100% right. It's in our town, and I've been around for a long enough time. It takes a collective effort for everybody to get something done. I mean, I worked with Best Powers. You know, we were in the trenches doing the senior center. When Joe Penicalzi, he took the lead. And I said, hey, you know, knocked on Joe's door, went to his office, and I said, hey, what do we think? And he's just nodded and said yes.
Just a comment anecdotally, we changed coffee with a cop to lunch with a cop, which is a lot of fun. We had about 35 people come, and it was all about walkability and pedestrian protection, and even just driving on the roads. People not knowing, of course, they blamed it on all the new people coming in, but really gave specific examples. And Don Anderson was at that with 2 other officers, and it was a very lively discussion.
We lose sight that this town has 3,800 of us that are over 60 years of age. 17% of this town. And we need to use our collective power and bring these issues to focus.
It's not really a new concept. If you ever go to the Sugar Bowl and to Uncle's Deli, there's a brick sidewalk that connects those 2 streets, and it's the only one in town. You know, we could put those all over town, and that doesn't need. That's on the side street. It doesn't need a whole lot of approval. Mr. Picaro put them in on his project. David Genovese is putting them in on his project. I think they look great. That's what Greenwich has. You know, there are a bunch of sidewalks or crosswalks in New Canaan and in Westport. It's something that I think makes your town more walkable, and that's the ultimate goal.
So it sounds like there are 3 components to this. There's the private owners, which you say you've got, right?
Working on.
Still, we've got for purposes of working on. That you may not need our assistance with that because you know these folks and et cetera. There is the town component, which is our first selectmen, Board of Finance, folks like that. And there's the state component / Darien Police component relating to the crosswalks on the post road. So one of the things I want our committee to think about, assuming we're in support of this, and we'll talk about this at the next meeting, okay? Which subcommittee would you like to serve on? Think about that. In other words, who brings skills to the table relating to state? Who brings skills to the table relating to town, right? Because whoever is running these subcommittees, and I'll be glad to chair one of them, I don't care. But the point is that we need to coordinate with Steve and have a smaller group of people who are there to help Steve push people you know. So if you know Monica and are friends with Monica, you'd be great on the town subcommittee. If you've worked with the state and know the police chief, you'd be great on the state committee. But give that some thought, assuming we approve this at the next meeting, because this will give you a chance to review some of these. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to get this you sent me this as a PDF or
I can send it to an electronic PDF.
I'll send it to as a PDF and send it out to everybody. So everybody will have their own, okay? And so take a look at that over the next month. And and in October, this will again be on our agenda relating to what, A, do we approve of this? B, how do we help Steve? And I think we can't be nebulous about this. We have to be forceful in having subcommittees who are accountable to, I'm going to help get the state approve this. I'm going to help get the town approve this. Meanwhile, Steve working with the private developers. And obviously if P comes to us and say, you know, X, I need you to talk to Dave Dolcetti, fine, right. But at the same time, right now, it doesn't sound like that's where Steve needs our help on that third leg.
No, if you see him in the street. If you see him in the street, and he's buying a cup of coffee, you say, hey, you know. When I went, when we walked there, we were walking along the side of the old Brooks Brothers building, which is now the bottle shop, and all the bushes were dead that are on the side of that building, and the sidewalk is only about a foot, 3 feet wide or 2 feet wide. I said, Dan, Phil, why don't you take out those bushes and widen the sidewalk? Wow, that's expensive. And he took out the dead bushes, and I think it's now just mulch. So it does not, that's not me. And it was a fun conversation. It was a fun day. It was a fun walk. But it would look a lot nicer. It would look a lot nicer. And go walk that sidewalk. It's very narrow, and there's bushes right next to it. And maybe there's mums there right now. And if it was me, I would take out the mums. And just for a quick example, and I go back to it again at 1020 Post Road, where the restaurant is. When COVID happened, they were allowed outdoor dining. A year or 6 months later, David Genovese came to the P&Z Commission and said, can we take out all those beautiful bushes on the left-hand side of the building and put in sidewalk and put in paths? And we said, sure. So if you look at it now, there's tables and chairs there. The sidewalk doubled, I think, 3 feet wide. And that didn't come from us. We just approved it. And, it didn't cost the town of Darien a penny.
So let me ask you a question, Steve. Would you like us to have a subcommittee for the private developer side of it?
Oh, yeah. They love going up.
So that's 3, okay. So you got 3 options. State, town, private developer. So if you know some of the private developers in town, and you could call them up and they take your call, and you could take them, have a cup of coffee with them, you'd be perfect for that subcommittee. So we have 3 subcommittees potentially. So we'd like to get 3 people on each, okay? Think about that question, right, as for the next meeting, assuming we approve this. Other questions for Steve? Okay, Sue?
I didn't see anything with Tokenique Road in the plan. Is there anything to include?
The town of Darien spent a ton of money on Tokenique Road over the last, I want to say 4 years or 3 years. They connected from Louis' Restaurant all the way past, all the way down to, past the interstate. And down past the interstate. There's new sidewalks all down there.
Okay.
Yeah, and they, actually, I have all kinds of other stuff I can talk about, but I know you're very strict on your timing. As part of one of the most recent developments that did happen, that building on Tokenique Road, it was a church. It was a fellowship church. That was available for sale at a time. The last piece of paper inside this document is that site. That was for sale at the time. There was a plan that came through that a developer called up and said, hey, can we knock that thing down and put up apartments there and expand the sidewalks because they go around the corner. The state owns a lot of that land. We said no to putting more apartments there at the time because we don't need it and it's not zoned for it. Another church bought it, but all those sidewalks there were redone by Public Works last year. Or before, I always say last year, but it's really before COVID. And we did the same thing happened over on Old Kings Highway as you go from where Trader Joe's is on the Post Road up and over down to 3 Parklands. That's all new sidewalks there too. So what we're trying to do is the Post Road's in the middle. You're trying to expand east and west. So people can come from here to be able to walk in town. That 3 Parklands, that office park is only, a quarter mile from the Post Road and the bus stop? That's close. but that is on the radar screen. Thank you.
Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming here. So, and we will be back in touch with you. May have you come back at a future meeting as we talk about how we implement this and do our best. Yeah, I can see it's a long-term project, right? So
1951.
That's right. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we should basically recognize that we don't have a lot of power to make things happen fast, but we do have power, as Peter pointed out, the 3,800 seniors, that we can use that power on a long-term basis to make positive change happen. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
The only other commercial I want to give to you guys is, if you watch TV 79 much, watch the most recent OPC meeting, which was, I think, on September 14th, and maybe this Monday's meeting, which is the chairman's report at the end. All the news, latest and greatest that's happening with Darien for the last, since my last report is on there. Just wanting other updates and thoughts. But thank you.
Thank you, Steve. You're the best. Appreciate it. Great. As you know, I try to keep it to an hour. We may run a little bit over, but I know Beth wanted to report on. Beth, you have an issue to talk about?
Yeah, very briefly.
Sure.
This statewide senior center work group has kept working every month, even through August. We are postponing the September meeting because we've actually been given some things that we have to do with the other senior centers that we represent, which I'll tell you more about. But they are finalizing how to spend the $10 million. We've all given our input from across the state. Pretty much all of the senior centers have that. It was available to them to give their input to it. The Office of Policy Management is looking at the hire of the senior center coordinator. This is a liaison that would be a person that actually would advocate for all of our senior centers are very different across the state of Connecticut. You wouldn't believe how different each area is. So we all do different kinds of advocacy, and the other portion of this person's job would be able to message what we really do. We found especially during COVID, that we did a lot more than people realize, and we still do a lot more than people realize. There's an image of senior centers that has an image problem, and it needs to be clarified to all the communities, because most of us are municipal and do require tax funding. But there would be a general messaging that would go out as to the synergies with other departments and other services in town. That's not why I think they picked for the September this year for the national Strengthening Community Connections, because it was really very apparent all that we did during the time of, especially during the time of pandemic. So this is a new position, and it will be under that big office of, I always have to look, Peter, because I think the name of it is so big, children's, it's a huge, we're all clumped together, and that's one of the reasons why it'd be wonderful to have an advocate, because once we were just a Commission on Aging and just represented aging, and we were kind of absorbed, and it's children, it's adults, it's everyone at this point. So this is really wonderful to have this focus. Because it's also National Senior Center Month, they are collecting photographs, and I don't know how they're going to put them up. It's going to be on major news stations of everybody, of all what we're doing for Senior Center Month, so people can get a clearer idea of what is happening. And then we have 14 senior centers in Fairfield County. Everything that they ask that in terms of the work that we have to do, I present to those 14 senior centers. The 14 senior centers then, and I have a dialogue. We usually meet once a month, and whatever their contributions, their ideas, their best practices, we share with this bigger group. So it's more than that, just the 2-hour meeting that we have once a month. It's all the homework that we're doing. I'm actually having a meeting today with all 14 of us to talk about what definitely what we want to work on for the October meeting in terms of clarifying more and more what each region wants, especially of this person who's going to be doing the job. So, we're also looking at staffing, we're looking at our statistics. We're looking at the discrepancy, like some of us are organized that we're under our Department of Human Services, some of us are freestanding, some of us, the directors are municipal agents, some are not. We're trying to see that when we come together, that the best practices that we put forth are something that the state can model all together so there's more synergy. All of us are under an area agency on aging. We are very fortunate that the Southwestern Connecticut Area Agency on Aging is extremely, extremely communicative, goes through the grant process with us, really cares about what we're doing at senior centers, uses us as a focal point as the Older Americans Act designates. That's a federal act. But others do not. So that's part of us putting forth what our SWACA does, what our Area Agency on Aging does. The other thing is upstate, there tends to be a little prejudice that our region is only 14 towns and cities. Peter loves this when I hold my hand up and I say, but look at the population. How many of you have a Bridgeport, a Stamford, and a Norwalk? You don't. The diversity that we have in this 14-town area, and even though we have affluence within it, still we have a huge charge of diversity too. So it's really important that we keep messaging that as well so that, we can work on this together. So it's really a communication group. The fact that this position is a position not just under grant, it's going to be accepted under the Department on Aging, she's going to work, or he's going to work under the Department on Aging, is a very good thing for us. It might help us with all senior issues, again, especially as our commissions advocate. And also to Peter, Peter's probably going to say this, also their charge should be to make our commissions on aging more powerful. So, and how?
I've just been appointed for 2 years to represent Darien on the SWACA, the Southwestern Commission on Aging, taking LA Ramstack's position.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I held that for 10 years. It's a wonderful group to be part of. You'll feel very good about our part of the state and the work.
I won't be holding it for 10 years.
Well, again, you'll love Marie Allen, the executive director. No, we're very fortunate, but we still, we have a lot of good things to share, but we also learned during this, just a little history, during the pandemic, all 169 of us worked and talked to each other at least once a month via Zoom. So we were sharing best practices all along, and all doing emergency services as well. So we learned a lot about each other, which is a really good thing too.
Awesome.
Okay, so
Thanks, Beth.
you're welcome.
Jim showed up, so would you like to speak on At Home at Darien?
Chris,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm too focused on walkability. Chris,
That's all right.
briefly on At Home at Darien, please.
Steve's a tough act to
Just
follow.
for a point of time, I do have a couple of important things.
Sure.
So we're going to have to.
No, that's fine.
extend
We'll circle back to you after we're done.
Right.
Sorry, Chris, you're
Okay,
up.
sure. Well, last time when I was here in July, I just started.
Yeah.
And I think equally important, we just hired a new driver.
Yeah.
And the summer was very busy, and ridership is up. Year over year, we're up about 16%.
Nice.
But the story is in August, year over year, we're up 34%.
Wow.
So the demand is there, which is fantastic. We have our taxi voucher program, which I don't know if you're aware of, but 50% discount on all taxi vouchers, and that's up 34% year over year. Our volunteer rides are up 50%, and that's volunteer riders who will supplement or complement our two drivers. So the demand is there. The one stat that's down, which is kind of intriguing, is the new riders. So we're down about 45% with new riders. So we're looking at that, I'm looking at that is what can we do from an awareness standpoint to leverage social media, some other outreach efforts to try to reach, as Peter mentioned, 3,800 seniors, and we're working with a small percentage of that.
Right.
So a lot of what we do moving forward is going to be focused on that. A couple other things, our Fall Out and About, which is our 3 times annual newsletter, is literally being mailed either tomorrow or Friday. So that'll be interesting, profiling a number of people tied into At Home in Darien, employees, volunteers, and of course our senior riders. The annual luncheon is set for November 3rd in conjunction and coordination with the DCA at the DCA. So I would advise anybody to pass along that word. We've got about 125 spots, and I know space historically goes pretty quick. It's a free lunch.
The speaker, I mentioned the speaker is going to be this humorist who.
Yeah. Aaliyah Zobel Nolan, a woman out of Norwalk.
Who wrote a book about,
It's called Laugh Out Loud, and we got the name,
From me.
thankfully, from Beth.
Yeah.
So,
She's like Irma Bombeck. You're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of fun with her.
her book, which will talk primarily about Laugh Out Loud, 40 female humorists and some great stories, and so we're really looking forward to that. Our fall appeal is just about ready to kick off, and that's important for our organization. We get about 60% or more of our donations that comes out of that second appeal. So we're focused on that, and that's going to be going out. We've got I don't know if it's our second annual event with Jay McLaughlin.
Yes.
We're second annual, and that is September 29th. And 15% of all of the net of the gross sales will come to At Home in Darien. It's a big moneymaker for them, but fortunately for us also. So we're going to try to we try to promote this everywhere we can. And our annual meeting, if you want to put on the calendar, is December 6th, Tuesday, December 6th, which will be at the library. We're working on the format. We might utilize a panel discussion versus a speaker, so more to follow on that. But the good news is ridership's up, and we're looking for ways to increase it and support it even more.
You might also mention, we're now doing half-day Fridays. We used to not drive at all on Fridays, and it's really going to take off.
Yes, that's a good point. That soon, I think, is going to be full-day Fridays.
Yeah.
So you're right, that's important, and we've got to get the awareness up for that also. Thanks.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chris. Peter?
I've got a couple of important things, one of which directly relates to this commission, and that is I want to talk about the Blight Review Board. So the Blight Review Board is comprised of 5 members, one of whom is from this Commission on Aging. Because when it was set up, there was some thought that perhaps Blight was more wired to seniors. As it turns out, it isn't, although it is also important for us as well. We meet the second Tuesday of every month at 5:30 upstairs. 2 things that have happened and interesting, and it's also a video, and you can watch it on Vimeo, is they are considering now extending Blight Review to commercial properties. And also, they're looking at the possibility of foreclosure on property. Again, this involves a town decision because the town would essentially become the property owner. Okay. I bring it up because my term of service is over in November. I've served my 2 years. I don't plan to continue. I have other things that I need to do. And so, Joe, I would ask that you lead an effort to find someone. Jim ably served for more than 2 years on that Blight Review Board. So you need to find someone.
Absolutely. It would be amazing to have a Commission on Aging member. We can put that on our October agenda as to who we can have from our Commission on Aging serve. If no one's willing to serve, we then need to strongly recruit to find a very strong advocate for seniors on that Blight Review Board, because not necessarily, I do think that on residential properties, seniors may be more impacted going forward.
The other 2 things I want to mention is I want to talk about what's new at AARP. I also want to, just out of curiosity, who here attended the Darien Library's annual meeting on Sunday evening? No one. And I make that as a point because we should really, all of us, and all seniors, really push to have At Home in Darien's annual meeting before. But it was a fascinating meeting. Mary, you said to me this morning that you read the paper for the obituaries. Well, there's been a legacy project at the Darien Library for about 10 years, and I've been involved in it. But the most frequent phone call our library receives is for obituaries. It is the most frequent call the library receives every single year. People looking for obituaries. Other towns like Stamford have done a yeoman's job of getting that up on their library website. Guess what? Darien's going to have it up this year on its library website. So it's been a pretty major undertaking, but it's also pretty significant as a source of information. The other thing I want to mention is they are grappling, the Darien Library is grappling with getting attendance back to the level, the in-person attendance. All of their online stuff is up, as you would imagine, but in-person attendance is still lagging behind. I'm so delighted to hear what's happening at the senior center. And that ties into the last thing I want to talk about, which is AARP. We also have not met face-to-face volunteers in 3 years. We met on Saturday. I belong to the Bridgeport Council, which represents AARP volunteers from Bridgeport to Greenwich. And one of the things that came up, the strongest thing that came up, the biggest need now is to get people back out of their homes. It's to get people back out of their homes because too many people are too comfortable, feeling too isolated, and it's a real barrier. It's a real barrier. The other thing we talked about is two other things, fraud and voting. Did you know that there are only 4 states in the Union that only allow voting 1 day a year? Do you want to guess who they are? New Hampshire, Alabama, Mississippi, and Connecticut. And AARP has been pushing to get this changed. And some of you may remember some years ago it went to the legislature, it got on the ballot about extending voting, making it easier, expanding the number of days, doing it via mail, doing it over the internet. And it was such a convoluted proposition, it failed, which was what some people were very happy with. This year it's very, very simple. It's a yes or no. So on the ballot is going to be a yes or no question that says, do we want to consider in this state early voting? Very, very important.
One thing I understand, though, is that it's on, you have to turn the ballot over to read that question, which is really unfortunate.
Right. And that's why we need to be the voice. That's why the folks watching on Channel 79 need to understand this. Okay, I don't know about you, but I benefited during COVID because it was so simple and it was so convenient to get the ballot from town hall, and then put it in the ballot box right outside town hall. And you know what? There was really no evidence of voting fraud in our state. There was no evidence of voting fraud in our state. The second thing is scams. The scams are just increasing. I'm going to give you a little tool here. It's going to be a little AARP gift. but throw that in your purse or your wallet. Where did Jim go? I was going to give him something.
To take off a little early.
What this is it's a statewide scam hotline, and it's now so frequently used that they're adding people to it. And the point we make is you're not being scammed. People are not being scammed.
Thank you.
They're being assaulted.
Harassed.
They're being assaulted. They're victims. They are victims.
Physical assault?
No.
Just
Monetary assault, privacy assault, identity assault. So this is a real major push.
Peter, this website, will that provide examples of fraud and scams?
Well, and the AARP website will as well.
Okay.
And the other thing is AARP is back expanding its in-person presentations now, so you'll be seeing it at
Driving is back,
right?
Yeah.
Library scam materials and information. So again, I'd encourage you, Joe. I'll just give you this.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
We're going to have lots of stuff for our minutes because one of the things I'm going to include is Steve's report as well. So you'll see this all in the minutes again.
And that'll go for me, Joe.
Thanks, Peter, appreciate it.
I'm sorry, there is one thing.
One more.
Yeah, one more. I called the registrar of voters yesterday and asked them if they had enough folks to work the polling places in town. And the answer was, at the moment, they do. But they would encourage us, the viewers, if you're interested, there are slots available. Please call your registrar of voters to go by and see them. They have a simple form and get on the list. You even get paid. You get paid for it. You get a free lunch. But as you know, it's a great public service.
I would just like to push further on this voting. I wonder, do we have a database of seniors? Do we know who all of our seniors
In the registrar of voters, they actually have it statistically divided in age. So if you ever wanted to ask them to send something specifically out to 65 and older, 60 and older.
I just think it would be great for the commission to encourage all the seniors to vote and also to have, rides for voters if needed. I just think it would be a great thing to, I've been on the board of the League of Women Voters forever and would love to see some either coordination or just Aarp pushing to make sure seniors are reminded that day. I don't know whether you send out emails or how all that.
In our constant contact, we now send out 2,000 constant contacts every week.
Yeah.
So we represent other departments as
Probably
well.
on it, but it just is something that's occurred to me.
And now I think District 6 is officially in the Mather Center, so we are officially closed on Election Day. So I think that's gonna probably highlight too that voting is happening. During the primary, it is in the Mather Center, but for November, it's the gymnasium and one room of the Mather Center. So I think that's also, I don't think it's seniors that are having a problem with voting.
I just would love to have us encouraged.
Yes.
So we do that. Peter is our main guy on that. I promise you, 3 months ahead of any vote, Peter's already pushing that at every TV 79 thing, and it's great.
And at home starts to say about rights very early on.
So that's a great thing. And at home in Darien should be doing more of that. Even saying, hey, if you don't know what your polling place is, and the polling places are changing, it would be great to call up because again, as a poll worker, time and again, people will come in and say, I voted here last year. I'm sorry.
And so our database is really strong. I mean, when somebody turns 16 in town, we get that notification. We reach out to them with a membership card. And so the database is really strong. And yeah, like everybody else, we're trying to figure out ways to promote it. Our blog, which just working on this week for October, which will go on our website, and which we send out to 1,000 people, 900 via MailChimp, and we mail out 150. That's going to be focused on elections with some interesting information, but also emphasizing the fact that we will pick up anybody and bring them to whatever polling station they need.
Awesome. Great. Any other old or new business? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn the September? Thank you, Peter. Second. Thank you, Mary. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody, for a great meeting. We will see you in October.